up over my eyes.
Jon Langford was a founding member of the Mekons, a band formed by art students at the University of Leeds. After moving from Newport, Wales to Chicago, Illinois in the early 90s, Jon formed the Waco Brothers, a country punk group. In addition to playing music in many bands, he works as a producer on many records. Jon also writes books, has a comic strip, and creates a lot of artwork. It was great to talk with one of my favorite musicians and artists, Jon Langford.
Mine eyes have seen nothing but poison rising over the land. Like paws through many hands, it's all part of a perfect plan. I have a vision.
You're listening to Frets with DJ Fey. No lessons, no technique info. I just talk to people who play guitar. Stay tuned. Well, Jon, thanks so much for calling in.
Hello, how are you this evening?
Well, good, good.
Whatever time of day it is.
Yeah. Well, I've only been to Wales once, and I was only 19, actually just a short stop on the way to Edinburgh. I don't remember much about it because I really wasn't there much. But you were born in Newport, I think. Isn't that near Cardiff?
Yeah, Newport is a town, it's another seaport town, just kind of up the Severn Estuary from Cardiff, near the English border. And kind of industrial town, steelworks, and then coal mines above it up the valley. So we spent there. You know, my youth was spent there, and it was kind of grey and wet, and there wasn't much going on, but I'm very fond of it.
Yeah. Whenever I hear of Cardiff, I think of the infamous Dave Davies, Mick Avery Kinks incident where Mick practically killed Dave over a little spat they had on stage. So.
It was a symbol, wasn't it? I didn't know that was in Cardiff, but maybe there's a lot of violent energy in Cardiff.
Yeah,
that certainly was when I was a kid. Anyway, we used to avoid it. We used to go to Bristol to see gigs, which was in England, but it was about 20 minutes the other direction.
Well, when you were young, I know you have an older brother. Is he the only sibling?
Yeah. I got my brother David. He's a kind of big wig in the science fiction world.
Yeah, I did read that he was an author.
Yeah, he's written a lot of novels. He edits a thing called the Encyclopedia of Science Fiction and Fantasy, I think.
Wow.
That's when he's, that's how he's made his living, writing, which was kind of an example to me, Neither of us really had proper jobs ever.
Well, you played rugby, and I started to say soccer, but I guess you called football. Played rugby and football when you were in, I guess, your teens or in school?
Yeah, that was what I did. I was kind of obsessive. Up to about the age of 15, I was playing 3 games a weekend, and it was, suddenly running around in the freezing cold and mud and rain in Wales. I suddenly realised that maybe there was other ways to express yourself. And I think about the same time I started hearing T-Rex and Slade and bands like that. I realized that maybe I wanted to be in a band instead.
Yeah, something indoors.
Yeah, something warm indoors.
Yeah, I was really into T-Rex as well, and the Kinks that we mentioned.
Yeah, it was just a very exciting time, the glam rock thing, because it was music before that seemed to be still the kind of the 60s, and that wasn't my time. Obviously, I was too young, and that was like everybody was rhapsodizing over how that was the most fantastic music that ever been made in the history of the world. And it was this kind of, there was a kind of narrative about the 60s, about how it went, and then suddenly, glam rock and David Bowie and people like that happened, who were taking it right back to kind of, rock and roll entertainment. And I don't know, it was very immediate, and it really appealed to younger kids. And we were kind of like wannabe football hooligans who, and I think Roxy Music, Bowie, Slade, T-Rex brought a lot of those kids into listening to music who kind of thought before that it was their older brothers kind of like, world. And we suddenly it was that we had our own music.
Right. Yeah, it was the same thing. I was the youngest of two brothers, and it's like all of our older siblings or friends of our older brothers and sisters we were kind of following their lead. But yeah, then some more music came along that we were really into. What the University of Leeds that's where you formed the Mekons, right?
Yeah, the first day I got to Leeds, I met Andy and Mark, who would become the singers in the original Mekons lineup. And Tom arrived at the same time as me. We were in the same year, and basically the studio next to mine, so we were kind of mates. And and the first day I was there, Andy told me that his mate Andy Gill was forming a band, and it was a cross between Velvet Underground and Dr. Feelgood.
Nice.
And I was like, I wonder, wow, that sounds quite good. I said, I'm not quite sure who Dr. Feelgood. I'm not quite sure who the Velvet Underground were at the time. I was quite young. Then someone explained to me that there was John Cale and Lou Reed's band. Then I understood. But Dr. Feelgood, I was very excited by, because they were the only band in the mid '70s in England who had like short songs, short hair, and tight jeans.
Oh yeah.
Everybody else was stoned out hippies playing mellotrons. But I don't mind that. I don't mind that either.
Right.
Really. But it wasn't my thing. It wasn't very exciting. And I saw Dr. Feelgood on a TV show when I was about 16, 17, and that was just, this is something. They were playing kind of like really brutal, hard R&B music, but to us it was very, very different from the kind of the hippie hangover of the '60s that kind of ruined my teenage years.
Yeah, and that guitarist for Dr. Feelgood, Wilco, he played a really interesting style. I've seen some great old footage of him playing. It's great.
No, he's absolutely fantastic, and it's still a huge influence. Or was a huge influence on Andy from the Gang of Four, and and I think Andy's guitar playing was the antidote to a lot of the punk rock guitar playing, which was, people were just kind of ripping off. Most punk bands just kind of ripped off the Ramones. He did big bar chords, and Andy really took it somewhere else. And I think that was a lot to do with him listening to Wilco Johnson. So
Andy Corrigan, right? Who was in Gang of Four? Was it?
No, Andy Gill.
Oh, Andy Gill. I'm getting my Andys mixed up.
Yeah, Corrigan was the singer in the Mekons. Still is, if we do anything. We still have we have two Mekons now, and we have the Mekons 77 played a bunch of gigs over the last sort of 10 years, and it was really nice to get back together with the original lineup. But then the Mekons is still plowing on.
Stay tuned. We'll be right back. Looking to buy a guitar, an amp, pedals? Find great deals on all of these, as well as audio and recording gear at reverb.com. You can also sell your gear through Reverb. They have great articles about music gear and bands. And Reverb believes music makes the world a better place. That's why they created Reverb Gives, that provides youth music education programs all over the world with the instruments they need to make music. Link to Reverb through Frets with DJ Fey in the show notes for this episode. You took art and painting at Leeds.
Yeah, it was a fine art course, and I think most of the Gang of Four were on that. Most of the Mekons were on that course. It was a quite radical left wing kind of college, so that was its saving grace as far as I was concerned, because we kind of kept creeping back in to, go to lectures, and I think the stuff we were kind of like talking about there in college really informed what we were trying to do inside punk, and then also informed, the stuff I've done since. It was I don't think I appreciated it very much at the time, but looking back on it, it was quite an interesting little hothouse to be in,
Yeah. Well, at some point in those days, you switched from playing drums to guitar at some point in one of the bands, right?
Well, Mekons kind of broke up after we never really formally broke up, but there was hardly anyone left. People just wandered off after we were fired by Virgin Records. And about that same time, I went back to art school, and we started doing a band called the Three Johns, which was, sorry, that was a dog barking.
That's all right.
Started trying to do a band called the Three Johns, and that used a drum machine. And I became very interested in drum machines, and I played a bit with a band called the Sisters of Mercy, who used drum machines as well. So their main guy, Andy, kind of helped me a lot with that. And I started playing guitar. I didn't kind of leave the drums. It was just a different situation. And then when the Mekons started to try to do things again back 82, 83, I remained singing and playing guitar. And it wasn't until like 1985 that Steve Goulding joined the band, and we had a drummer again. We mostly worked with machines and sequences and stuff for those few years. But during the miners' strike in England in 84, 85, we really wanted to show solidarity with the miners and try and raise some money for them and their families, because they were basically being starved by Margaret Thatcher and her kind of monetarist, capitalist, evil government. So we put the band back together. I don't know how much we helped, but it was, it provided a lot of material, and I think it was an important stand to make at that time. It was really the last stand of the trade union movement in Britain, where it was really, really powerful, and Thatcher did achieve what she wanted. She wanted to destroy that working class power, and she did. So it's been a sorry state of affairs ever since. Right?
Yeah. Well, I do want to talk about some of the other bands you've been in, and I absolutely want to talk about your artwork at some point. But before that, I'd like to talk about one of my favorite weekly radio shows, which has been one of my favorites for years, which is now available as a podcast also, and that's This American Life. My routine years ago was on Sundays. It was my afternoon to relax, and I would always listen to that week's This American Life. And I happened to hear, I think it might have been like in the early 2000s, but there was an episode called Classifieds, and Act 2 of that was the segment called Help Wanted. And I'm probably getting this sort of right. You could do a better job of explaining it but to the listeners. But what I remember was that you did an experiment of sorts, finding people to form a band by placing various and separate classified ads looking for kind of very specific types of musicians that were from kind of diverse backgrounds or played diverse instruments, including a theremin. And it's just one of my favorite episodes of all time.
That's what we found. I mean, we didn't really look for a theremin player, but we thought we'd place the ad and see what would happen. And then it was the producer, one of the producers and writers for the show was Starlee Kine, and she's fantastic. And she kind of nudged me into doing it. I thought it sounded like it was going to be kind of like a sarcastic-y type thing to, sort of like we would kind of make fun of these people who, the sort of people who would answer an ad in the paper to be in a band, because I'd never done that most of my band. So I don't know, I felt I had real kind of like misgivings about doing it. And then we sort of got into it. And it was actually really great, and the people we met were fantastic. And that wasn't the tone of it at all. It wasn't, dismissive of them. It was actually like, wow, look what you can do. You can just bring random people together, and they can actually make something pretty great. And they all bring their own stories, and you can have a band with people from really wildly different backgrounds, and it was hilarious. I thoroughly enjoyed the whole thing.
Yeah. I've gone back.
A lot of crazy things happened around making it as well. And then I ended up taking a bunch of the people we met during that On the Road.
Oh, wow. I did not
and
know
they
that.
recorded with me as well, you know.
That's great.
Yeah, it was very, I didn't want it to be a negative thing. That's what I was worried about. I just wanted, and it didn't, you know, the people involved didn't allow it to be that. They were all sort of strong personalities, and it became a very positive story, I thought. But funny, you know, funny as hell, because the way people interact with each other is great.
Yeah. Well, for listeners who haven't heard that, it's an old episode. It's in the archives, but if you haven't heard it, the song that they decided to do, which I think, John, you decided was Rocket Man by Elton John.
I think the song that everyone might like.
Yeah.
And I was like, who doesn't like Rocket Man? It's brilliant.
And it was great. It turned out so great.
Yeah, it's a very nice version of the song. And then the fact that we acquired a theremin player, because we had to go around to all these people's houses and like interview them. And there was this guy, Eric, he was a theremin player. And he was, I don't know, he's just one of the most interesting people I've ever met in my life, to be honest. He was absolutely fantastic. And he said, his card said, prepare to be amazed. And, yeah, I'm here, Eric. Amaze us. And then he amazed us. And,
I love that.
yeah, literally he came out on tour with us, with This American Life. They did a little tour and we took him out on the road with us. It was fantastic.
That's great. Every time now that I hear Rocket Man, and even when I saw the film, I think of that old episode. That's great.
Yeah, it was quite just a unique moment. Yeah, I like it when you think things are going to be a certain way, and then it turns out different. So.
And I think it's gonna be a long, long time till touchdown brings me round again to find. Not the man they think I am at home. No, no, no. I'm Rocket Man. Rocket Man. Burning out a fuse up here alone.
Eric, that sounds great. I've got a request, though. Could you do the classic 1950s flying saucer effect at just about 20 seconds from the end?
Sure can.
That could, lead us out?
Hi, I'm Jon Langford from the Mekons and the Waco Brothers, and you're listening to Frets with DJ Fey.
Multi-instrumentalist John Horton has played guitar with many bands in the Midwest. He became an integral part of the Bottle Rockets and is currently with Sunvolt on lead guitar.
It was really about that time that I started to really discover and become a student of primarily older country music, but also a lot of other things too. You know, R&B from 60s and 70s, blues, jazz, you know, I guess largely what you could kind of call roots music, you know, like older pop music, 30s swing music, you know, big band stuff, even, I mean, you know, that's kind of on the fringes of the stuff that I was becoming a student of. I like to think I was being a student of a lot of that stuff.
You can hear my talk with the great John Horton in Season 1 of Frets. Well, back to the subject of bands you've been part of. I love the names of some of your band names, like We Hairy Beasties and the Men of Gwent. There's a humor there that I love.
The Men of Gwent is an ongoing situation. We Hairy Beasties is sadly demised, but that was only because it was meant to be a kids band, and it was only around for the length of time that our kids were interested in kids bands. So once my kids weren't interested, we let it go.
Yeah.
But We Hairy Beasties, the Men of Gwent is a band based in Newport in South Wales. So everybody else lives in the UK, and the project was to write songs mainly about a kind of 6 mile square area. So,
I was a fan of the Darling Buds too. Was somebody from Darling Buds in the band?
Yeah, two members of the Men of Gwent are in the Darling Buds. Eric and Matt still play with the Darling Buds, and I love the Darling Buds.
Yeah,
fantastic.
I did too.
We actually we had a record company up in Leeds that put out the Sisters of Mercies and the Mekons and the Three Johns, and we actually paid for their initial demos because we heard of them and just thought they were great.
Yeah, it's great stuff. I've seen the Waco Brothers a couple times in St. Louis, once at a Wood House concert where I met you.
Oh, yeah.
I bought some of your artwork at the Wood House concert.
Yeah, off-Broadway as well, we used to like to play.
Yeah, it's still, we talk about that on a couple episodes. Some of the other guests agree that we still think that's our favorite venue in St. Louis is off-Broadway. I've got an affinity for that venue.
Yeah, Steve's fantastic. I've played it a number of times over the years. Can't wait to go back, to be honest.
Yeah.
This pandemic's been very strange for that.
Yes. Yeah.
You go, you have these relationships with people you only see once or twice a year, and then you don't see them for like nearly 3 years. It makes you it's kind of strange.
Right. Well, quite a while back, I discovered your artwork that I mentioned on the Yard Dog site, and I just love it. And right here in this room I'm speaking in, I've got 3 pieces that you did. So,
really?
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Well, one is of Bob Dylan. One is a masked cowboy singer. I think it's called The Unknown Singing Cowboy.
Yeah.
And then one of a bird, which you signed for me at the Woodhouse concert.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, he's just moved, doesn't he, Rick Wood?
He did. Yeah. We're all very, very, very happy for Rick and Nancy. But
Are they out in the Ozarks somewhere now?
It's, I don't think it's quite, I should know that by now, but I don't think it's quite that far. It was. I'm
open to go and see him anyway. He says he thinks it's a good place for musicians to come and turn up and do things. So
yeah.
Once he starts getting it together, I'll be back there.
There's such great shows.
Oh yeah.
And you were, I forget how many years ago, you were gracious enough to let us use some of your artwork and kind of weave it into some of the Twang Fest materials, like badges and posters and stuff like that. So that
I remember you had a big giant shield up behind the side.
Yeah, behind the stage.
Yeah, his gig, that was great.
Yeah.
No, Twang Fest, well, we have a lot of history with Twang Fest.
Yeah, it's a great thing.
Still apologizing to members of Twang Fest for ripping them off at a hotel one night when we played the dice game. Were you there?
No, I was not involved in that.
Well, we kept winning. We invited all these people back to a hotel to play this dice game. And then we kept winning, and by the end of it was like mutinous, riotous. They wanted to hang us up by meat hooks because we were clearly cheating, but we weren't cheating. There was really no way to cheat. We were just winning all the time, and it was like I think people got pissed off. But
wow,
it was still great fun.
If you're a podcast addict like me, you might have thought about starting your own. I'm having a lot of fun creating and sharing my podcast, Frets with DJ Fey. It seemed daunting at first, and I had no idea how to proceed after recording my first episodes. Then I discovered Buzzsprout. Buzzsprout has helped over 100,000 people, even knuckleheads like me, launch a podcast. The tools they provide make it incredibly easy to get your thing going. They'll also help you get your podcast into all the major podcasting platforms like Apple Podcasts, Amazon Music, Google Podcasts, and more. You get a great-looking website, audio players to drop into other websites, analytics, and tools to promote your podcast. To get a no-risk free trial of Buzzsprout, or to find out about their low-cost monthly plan options, follow the link in today's show notes and let them know that DJ Fey sent you. Learn the ins and outs of podcasting through people who eat, drink, and breathe it. Buzzsprout, the easiest way to start a podcast. Now, back to mine. You also illustrated a comic strip under the pseudonym Chuck Death.
Yeah, me and my mate Carlton B. Morton. Well, Colin B. Morton was his name on the strip. His real name is Carlton B. Morton. He was a musician from South Wales. And we collaborated a lot of musical stuff, and then he had this idea to do a kind of fake history of rock and roll as a cartoon strip. And some of the people we lampooned liked it, and some of them didn't like it. So
I can imagine.
Some bands asked if they could use it on their record sleeves, and then other more thin-skinned people objected. But it was all kind of I think David Bowie liked it, which was nice. 'Cause I think he had a sense of humor. So there was lots of jokes about David Bowie, but Morrissey, not so much.
Surprise, surprise.
Humorless.
So, all right. So, how would you compare life in Wales and England with living in the Midwest of the United States? Or, I mean, do you get back there much, or do you?
Yeah, I go back a lot, and I miss it very much. And I've missed it during this pandemic. It's been quite hard to not be able to just nip back over. I have family there, and I try and stay connected with them. But it was rough not being able to see them. I don't know. There's a lot of things I probably wouldn't have done if I'd stayed there that I've been able to do here. And Chicago's been relentlessly welcoming to me. I've had a fantastic time in Chicago. Just opportunities,
Yeah.
But you don't know. It's like life's, it's one path. I don't know. I don't know which forks I didn't go down. So I like to get back to Wales as much as I can. And Newport is a kind of little hotbed of people, creativity, and there's clubs there that still promote music and support music. So it's an very interesting place. So I can't wait to get back. I get back there in May. So I've got a gig on May the 3rd at Le Pub in Newport.
Oh, nice.
With the Men of Gwent. So that's an exciting thing on the horizon.
Well, a more recent band is Four Lost Souls.
Yeah, we did that band in 2016. We went to Muscle Shoals to a studio called the Nut House, but it was one of the people who was an engineer at the Fame studio, and Norbert Putnam, who was an original member of the Muscle Shoals rhythm section. He produced the record. I met him at the Country Music Hall of Fame at this event I'd done a lot of artwork for. It was the Dylan Cash and the Nashville Cats exhibit, which was hugely successful, and everyone had a great time. And I got to sing with, Norbert Putnam, Charlie McCoy, David Briggs, Matt Gaden, the opening night, because it was really the festival, the whole exhibit was really honouring the Nashville musicians who, were sought out during the 60s by, Bob Dylan first came there, then everyone wanted to come to Nashville and play with these Nashville Cats. So I met Norbert, and he said, "You sing like a pirate. You should come down to Muscle Shoals and make a record." And I was like, "All right, good. Pirate music. Is that big down there? I'll come and do it." But I was well aware of the history of Muscle Shoals, especially the racial history of that music, which I think is kind of fascinating, and something that after 1967 kind of fell apart because of that sort of black and white people making music together.
Right.
After Martin Luther King was shot, and it was just a different world all of a sudden. But there's something very special about what was going on down there. That these were, I said to Norbert, he said, "Well, that was all the music I listened to." They said when I was in Muscle Shoals, I played black music. Then when I moved up to Nashville, they said I played white music. I was playing the same music. And it's they didn't have those categories, and the stuff that came out of Muscle Shoals, I wanted to kind of express something through songs I wrote about the nature of country music and blues music, kind of all bubbling up from the same place,
Yeah, nice.
And that's what we tried to do. So that I'm still working with John Szymanski a lot. The two women who sang on that album, Bethany Thomas and Tony Newsom, have both gone on to huge fame and success.
Well, Tony Newsom, the Space Force, right?
Yeah, and she's constantly doing amazing things. And Bethany's a pretty big sort of theatre actor in Midwest in Chicago. Does sort of one-woman shows, and she's in the Christmas Carol at the Goodman Theatre at Christmas. And she's, they're both very, very busy, which I'm really pleased for them. But me and John kind of still throughout the pandemic, we kind of kept a little acoustic duo pod together. And we branched out more recently with we wanted to play noisy music during the pandemic, and we decided we'd see if Alan and Dan from the Waco Brothers would be interested in being in the rhythm section and coming around my house and wearing masks in the basement, playing really noisy music, because we after about 18 months of that, we got a bit sick of acoustic guitars. So we've got a new record coming out with a new band called Jon Langford and his Fancy Men.
Fantastic.
So, yeah, which is we took it down to South by Southwest, which was great. Did some nice shows down there.
Yeah, I wish I could have been there. I'm slowly getting back out, but the last couple of years I've been kind of...
Yeah, I know. People have different comfort levels,
right.
And we were just like, well, it's time now to go and do something. So
yeah,
we actually... Yeah, we seem to survive.
yeah, and I've been to a couple shows recently, but there was a long stretch there. I was really missing it. Stay tuned. We'll be right back.
They say there's not much left of the town, just a few old houses that are falling down.
Kip Louie has made music in his hometown of St. Louis for years. He's a co-founder of the annual music festival Twang Fest, an event that's brought music performers from all over the country to St. Louis for 24 years now. Kip has played in some great bands and has also released solo albums, often with his wife JJ on vocals, guitar, and harmonica.
And there was all this enormous complexity and these cool chord changes and like this mix of rock and roll and country and folk and blues. And that's funny because like I later came back to that, and that's kind of what I do these days myself, is, roughly speaking, in that Americana vein.
My talk with singer-songwriter and guitarist Kip Louie, coming up on Frets.
Lesterville was a hard place, not much beauty, not much grace. Even so, I nearly stayed, and my departure was delayed.
I like coffee, and I admit I've become a bit of a coffee snob. I drink coffee black because, hey, if you want to load up a cup with cream and sugar and syrups and all that, well, whatever. I want my coffee to be delicious without adding anything to it. I take the time to do pour-overs at home. I grind the beans and use my Chemex. The process is worth the wait, and when I buy beans, I buy coffee from my buddy String Bean Pete, coffee roaster and owner of String Bean Coffee. Pete's goal is to offer the finest beans from around the world. He roasts them passionately in small batches in non-computerized old-school ways to music under a disco ball. Yeah, you heard that right. He's a bit of a kook, but that's why I like him. And I really, really, really like String Bean Coffee. Find out more at stringbeancoffee.com. Well, you've always got something going on, John.
Yeah, there's a lot going on this year, So we're still allowed to do it. So I think being a musician is a position of some privilege, really. So and I love the fact that we can get out and do loads of different things now.
Yeah.
Hopefully this summer, the winter's tough, but in the summer we get to do a lot of outdoor stuff, and then people are going back into the clubs again.
Right.
So we'll see if there's hope. There's not another wave, but if there is, we'll batten down the hatches. Yeah.
Jon Langford, thanks so much for calling into Frets.
Thank you. Bye.
See you, John.
In this suburb of Babylon, they don't like to wait. They kill the messenger, 'cause the message was late. Kill the child, storming at the gates.
Thanks for listening to Frets with DJ Fey. If you like the show, you can follow or subscribe for free at most podcast platforms. Hope you'll join me again next time. Stay tuned.
I'm just trying to think of ways to get back down to St. Louis.
Yeah,
Need a gig.
Keep me posted.
Need a gig, man.
All right.
I'll see you soon.
Thanks, John.
Bye.